Cool. Good morning, and welcome to the 6th Creative Mornings Aarhus. Sixth? Sixth. And still rocking. No problem. It's perfect now. Now people won't be late next time. It's exposing them. Cool. So Creative Mornings, a world-based morning lecture series. There's no new chapters this month.
Yeah, this chapter here, where I'm from.
But that's kind of old still. Okay. But we are around 30 chapters around the world and counting. And new big things are gonna happen soon, so we're gonna get even bigger. It's a shame I can't talk about it yet, but be excited about it. A big thank you to Kunstakademiet for lending us the nice space. It's not the last time you'll be here, I think.
No.
Every time we get a foot in the door, we tend to try and come back. And very, very big cakes and are sponsored by Sideprojects, and actually the coffee is sponsored by Kunstakademiet. And please eat some of them, otherwise we'll have to eat them all afterwards. It's kind of really big. And thanks to Filmværket, they're filming it again. And there's a girl running around with a camera taking pictures, thanks to Anina. So I'd like to introduce the speakers. One of them is a creative genius and the other one is Abdul. The master of bad jokes.
Cool. We started, or we've been with running with side projects for 2.5 years, and our mission has been very simple. We want to help bring cultural production up to a new standard. We want to share all our nerdiness with as many people as we can, and thus we've worked about 3 or 4 months to get Creative Mornings into the city to make an application, and that was granted. And as this is the sixth version, we want to make sure that we go up to about 129. Why 129? But it's a nice number. And then this morning we will try and take you through one of the things that really occupies our heads. We have around 20 minutes to put through quite a lot of knowledge. So in one sense it's going to be quite fast. In another sense we've made sure that we're going to pace it so that you guys get what we're trying to say. We'll go through a history with you. We'll go through simple basics of how to use this. And then eventually, or hopefully, we infect you that you become as nerdy as us about this.
And we are known for going out on weird tangents because we're not good at keeping structure. So please stop us if you all of a sudden find yourself not understanding what we're talking about at all.
Yeah. So just before we go, there's a few. Whoever wants to take notes, we brought a few notebooks if you want to. And it's good to grab them now because when we start, you might wanna have. So they just pass. We don't have too many of them, but feel free.
Cool. Yeah. And also we will be hanging around for some time after, so we would be able to answer questions more in depth afterwards.
Sweet. Okay, so
maybe so our names. So how we would work with it, or how we work with this whole field of. It has many names. We choose to call it all visual literacy, and we will explain a bit about how it all is connected a bit later. one of the things I really enjoy, one of the things we work a lot with is taking visual notes at meetings or conferences or lectures. And mine tend to look like this. And yours tend to look like this. So it is taking all the information that's in the room and making it visual, and so it's easier to grasp and dive into and remember in the future.
Yeah, in one way, our brains, or as human beings, we have the sense to make patterns or see patterns, and by using visual literacy, we're able to give a course of how information is coming to us. And by then we could say that this is point A and this is point Z or Z, yeah? And this is the journey and how we got there. So this could be 1 hour into the meeting, this could be 3 hours into the meeting. But what you do for yourself is you give yourself a track to learn to go through, and quickly after, when you're doing a review, you're quickly able to zap into certain elements that resonate with you. Another important thing to mention maybe is that there is no right way and there is no wrong way. Each one of us has a very personalized worldview and how we see the world, and that in turn gives us a very specific way in how we chop up information. So in that way, there is no right and there is no wrong. The importance is to make information sticky for yourself. So when you get back to it, you're able to zap in and take out what is good. Yeah?
Should we show some of the video, or should we just give it? So another thing that we started to venture into is to take all this information and making it available in video form, animation, drawings. We have an example. We're just going to show 1 minute. A minute. We only have 20. A minute. That's. But just so you can get an idea of also how we use it as well to explain very, very complex information.
Yeah, exactly. And that was important to mention, that what we're showing you right now was given to us. The brief was simple. He said, I want a 1 minute video, and then he gave us about 8 or 9 sheets of voiceover. And so you try and make 9 pages worth of voiceover fit into 1 minute, and impossible. So the video turned out to be 8 minutes long. So we show you a small piece of how it is to take this complexity into a very simple way to grasp.
Yeah, and also we didn't understand what he was talking about. So.
At some point in the near future, the world's supply of oil and gas will fall below the level required to meet the international demand. The switch to biomass is a reasonable environmental decision, which we as a society welcome. However, the amount of biomass available depends on our ability to produce it, and as more and more facilities utilizing biomass are erected, deficiency will occur and prices will fluctuate. Limited resources must be used wisely, and it is therefore essential to look for a widespread of different sources of energy. And we can start by looking up. Every single hour, enough solar energy hits the surface of the Earth to meet global industrial and household requirements for 1 year. The solar energy will keep falling from the sun, and the prices will never fluctuate. The use of solar energy will therefore ensure stable energy prices for both private households and modern industries. Now there are many types of concentrated solar power technology: parabolic trough, linear mirrors, and solar towers.
And that's probably the most complex thing, because we were like, what is this? And trying to get through these 8 pages of talk was very, very difficult.
Where the average inhabitant uses 1.6 hours of electricity per year. Outside the city,
But we have this video on the web, right? And
I just love seeing my own work.
and we invite you to check it out.
Cool.
But essentially, what we've done there is we said the job will take X amount of days. It didn't. It took X amount of weeks. But essentially, we started. What we will be showing you now is how we've broken most of these elements down for anyone to actually get what this parabolic thing is. I'm still not clear what it is, but we kind of made the 8-minute video, and after that you kind of have an idea about the science of the technology.
But also an interesting thing is that there's still a voiceover, so it's not like
Yeah.
you don't need only to draw what you mean. You can actually use it as an aid when you talk or when you explain.
So,
Cool.
cool. Why do you love it?
I think this whole lecture, I think it started it was rooted in we want to talk about our love of drawing because we both love it so very much. I say drawing, and maybe it's doodling more than anything. It's not doodling is not a bad word.
No, I don't know.
But I think it for every person it's different from like why they love it or if they don't do it or if they just. I think most people just doodle while they talk on the phone or wait. But for me it's just a kind of freedom that just washes over me, and it's this.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah, I am. I'm deepest in the morning. It's my sin. And it's. I think it started when I lived in China. That's not true. But it's also the way of communicating exactly what you mean in a very simple way. And that started in China when no one spoke English, and I sure as hell didn't speak Chinese.
No one spoke English.
So just ordering some food without bones in it turned into a kind of a.
Ordering food with no pork in it was quite a adventure. I became a vegetarian.
but just like these small things became like a stress level almost. Like I can't eat more bones. So what I started. Did you have a lot of bones?
Why were you eating bones? Yeah.
But then that's where I started picking up on making small simple drawings of I would like some pig or pork, no bones please, and that was a very interesting and quick and nice way just to communicate with people. Just make a drawing and they would easily, most of them would just start adding on it. So do you want this instead? And that's where I really opened up of how easy it is to communicate as the only means of measure. And that's why I love it so much, and that's why I think it's the future. And soon none of us is writing anymore; we're just drawing or doodling.
Can I say why?
You can say why.
I mean, being from South Africa, we have a very complex thing down there. We have 11 official languages, and very much similar to what René is saying. But I was able to bridge what I was saying within a language that could. Across these 11 languages bridge. And so more and more I was able to start using these very simple drawings, and I could start using timelines, or I could use very simple symbols. And these symbols are also small elements that has been with us since hieroglyphics. But these symbols could communicate so much more bigger concepts. And when I got to know this, I am still very much able to cross bridges quite easily. I'm not an exceptional drawer in the sense that I'm not anywhere close to Walt Disney or his teams are, but I'm able to combine a few lines to make something look like what I'm talking about, and that has been a great help also in China, more so in Denmark. When that's a little bit of the loveness.
Just so I think we're gonna go over time. We spent half the time, just so you know.
So what is visual literacy? Quickly. We could say that it's any. Yeah, that's a really big long explanation.
Yeah, but then we just boil it down.
Yeah. So it's presenting information in a visualized way. A good example is the map you see there right now. That's a snapshot of the history of what we do. And one could say it starts up in the 1920s and it goes into 2000s. But here we've given you 3 tracks. And all of that knowledge there kind of encompasses this definition that we got from Wikipedia. For us, it is in a way the literacy that we learn in schools is how to communicate with words, and this one gives us a bridge again in how to use visuals to communicate also these heavy words.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think every smart lecture has something from Wikipedia on it, so that's now we're in the clear.
We've got it. So
So
we've broken it down into this little graphic again.
But we have chosen to use visual literacy as like the umbrella for the different things we work with. And we tried to boil it down yesterday, and I think we boiled it down to 3 areas we work in. One is visual notes or visual note-taking, sitting with our own little sketch block and taking personal notes more or less at meetings, conferences, lectures.
Graphic facilitation is this there. Using a map or using a big piece of paper to get people from A to B. And what that means is that you can guide the entire room to have one common picture, and that common picture resonates in all our heads, so we can't be on a different track because we're talking about a snapshot of graphic facilitation. Graphic recording in another sense would be that in a conference setting or a meeting session like this, René would be standing next to the speaker and making a recording of whatever is happening within the room. So in the big sense, the graphic recording here is to facilitate group knowledge. So we try and take what is surfacing, or we also within graphic recording and also with all 3, we use these things quite a lot, ears, and we don't have the amount of time to go into it. But there's a big amount of training that goes into how to listen for the goodness to make maps like this within graphic recording.
So when we would, like visual notes is more on a personal based and graphic recording is more as a, for everyone. So what we would do when we graphic record is we would probably roll out a 6 or 8 meter long piece of paper and start in one end, a lecture, and then start drawing and writing and whatever we need to, and everything that we just feel is important for whoever's in the room. And then afterwards you'll have a mural of this is what was said, and this is what we heard was important in the room.
In that sense, you try to pick up of what are the metaphors, you try to listen to the speaker's rhythm, the tonality of his voice, what elements is he stressing on. If he's stressing on a certain point, how is that resonating within the room, and what is coming off the room. So you try and, so I mean, in one sense you're getting all of this information here and you're trying to synthesize it through this hand here. And a few elements we want to show you now is just how to simplify all of that stuff.
That's a lot of it, yeah. Cool.
So what is visual note-taking? In the short, any visual that promotes the reconstruction of meaning for you. So whichever way you feel what we're talking about now, if you're sketching it within text, or with small text or big text, or you are positioning text in a certain way on your page, that is in itself using a visualized way to make sure that the information you're recording or you're making down as visual notes, you can get into again. It's a very good sense. I'm using it all the time within the work I do, because it's sometimes getting concepts or getting ideas over within cultural production, and then 5 people have very different ideas, and if you can't nail it down to one map, then it becomes very difficult for everyone to say, cool, yeah, we're building a big foot. And then Abdul's meaning, when I heard vi ska bygga en riktigt stor fot, so I thought we're building a big bird, but we were building a big foot. So you can understand, if we have a big map about that, it's way easier to say, we're building a foot and not a bird. Yes. So in here, the mechanics or the effect of making recordings or making notes is that if it is visualized, people can see and have a common understanding. That inspires more dialogue because people can be more engaged in it, and then it activates a very, very wider range of listening. You're not just listening on a one-to-one, you're listening to all. I mean, it's almost in a global listening sense. You're trying to pick up of what the person is saying, you're looking at these body expressions, you're taking up more communications. But the effect in itself engages, it tracks information. There's 3 tracks that you can follow. It makes connections. You can make a connection between one book in the 1950s into how it's being used in 2000. And it's a good connection.
Think 1 minute.
1 minute history.
We can jump. This is a work in progress, but we're trying to map out the whole history of visual literacy.
Yeah.
And the way we have done it is we have made 3 tracks. The top track is the influences of visuals in history. And the middle track is books, important books we see has been published around this topic. And then the bottom track is tech. So for the longest time we had flip charts, and then big paper came. And then some more high-tech stuff, and then we went back to big paper.
There's some focus areas that I think I want to bring your attention to. Is that right about here, it's 1960s and 70s, within Silicon Valley in the US, a lot was happening. Many people, many big thinkers were thinking very hard. There was one group of people that was using visuals in a very constructive way, and these were city planners and architects. And the way they would initialize a project was to try and sketch it out so that the client or the government knows that we're building this big square, we're building that. But what was happening is that more and more people were moving into how to take these kind of visualizations and combine them within in innovation work, or how could visuals facilitate bigger change and bigger leaps. And so a lot happened in the 1970s. And so from there, there's also this great invention around this time that the post-its came into play. They're a very simple thing, we use them all the time, but it was revolutionary within that time that you could start moving information on a session where we are talking about rebuilding San Francisco. And suddenly you could move elements within your meeting or in your discussion. Print boards came out. I've never seen one, but I've heard
1 minute.
1 minute. And then the other one is good here, the big boom of internet and how that made leaps for us. But also important, I think, to mention there is that there is, as much as it is a progression, there's also a regression that you can see. And the regression is that we started using big paper there, and we're back to using big paper. Because there's a humanistic element within it. Our drawings being more human elicits a better feeling from people. People feel they can engage more. If I make a drawing that looks like Walt Disney, you think it's the truth. If I make a drawing that looks like a child's drawing, you feel that you can engage. So there's a push and a pull element within that. That's one.
It's gonna be here, so you can go up and study it further. And we as we said I think we say it a lot of times, but we really much geeks. So we would know all this stuff. So please ask us if you have any questions towards it.
Super. So we progress.
That was all the information unloading.
Yeah. So here's a few basics.
So now you know exactly what it is.
And you can eat the coffee and the cakes and
so now we're gonna teach you exactly how to do it in 5-10 minutes.
The basics are as such.
If this is our religion, then this is the gospel, or this is like I'm not too religious.
This is the syntax.
This is the most important piece of information that has ever been made in the history of humans.
Totally.
Everything, every drawing, every visual can be broken down
To
these 12 symbols.
Simpleness.
These 12 characters.
Everyone makes a dot, everyone makes a line, and you can make a squiggly.
But I mean,
in combination they become something.
Yeah, but I don't care how beautiful it is. Everything can be broken down to these things, and it all starts with the 1 dimension or the 2 dimensional. So this is, I guess it's 2. It's both 2.
Yeah.
Cool. So it starts with a dot. You can then drag a dot out into a line. You can then bend the line into a curve. You can then curve it. You can spiral it, and you can squiggle it. Squiggle it.
Squiggle, that's a good one.
You can then add another element of making it round, what is it called? Svek? I don't know. What would you call this?
An eye.
Okay, fine. You can eye it.
You can eye it.
Yeah, a triangle and a box and a house and a cloud. But and with these things you can make anything in the world, and we have some examples of.
This anything. So that's the first anything. Right. So all these elements here. Squiggle again. Squiggle becomes important. Yeah. Lines. And here's a very famous thing within Denmark context. See the squiggle again? Informs a whole lot. But I think what we just want to illustrate here is that drawing is not something that you can't do. Something that everyone can do. The mechanics of how we use it is just that we start combining a few other elements within to give you more form, to give you more structure, and to mush it all together to give you something.
But again, we've mentioned Walt Disney, and I don't have any problem with Walt Disney. I think he's a brilliant artist, but he doesn't really, he's not doing any good for visual literacy, because it's not about making something beautiful. It's about communicating and creating understanding. So the second people understand what it is that you're drawing, the second the little chef in the restaurant in China could see I was drawing a pig, then my task was, I have reached what I wanted to reach.
Yeah, you're on your way to not having bones again.
Yeah, exactly. I was.
Progressively moving on.
So now you have the 12 letters in the visual alphabet.
Yeah. And then you can start combining them into these 6 elements. And much of the information that we're showing you has also been made by some very important people that we find extremely interesting.
But we'll give props to them.
We will share them with you.
Please bear with us. This is normally, how many hours is?
This is 2 days worth of work.
It's like 16 hours of workshops that we cram into 20 minutes. So
it's going a bit fast. But the first element within this kind of work here is that you can see here that I've stressed to both myself and to René that our lettering, it is clear. It's almost precise. It's not Helvetica, but it's precise. Because there's a scenario when you get the prescription from your doctor and he writes, and then only him and the guy that's dispensing the medicine knows what that is. Like, you've got to get that, and that doesn't really help us within this world here. So we would stress that you start practicing how to make letters, and you can really go wild out with letters. But simply, it's just to make clear writing, because it's important that what you're writing down can be communicated further. Yeah?
But it's also acknowledging that lettering is visual, and I would say it's the most important part of visual literacy.
Here's a blow your mind thing. Words are pictures. It blows my mind every time I read.
We're very deep this morning.
I mean, the way we see things, or the modalities within our minds, is that our brain recognizes words as pictures. And so in that sense, we're always visual, but there's this difference in how we take it in. We can either read, and whilst we're reading, we're also visualizing it within one of the areas here. But it's an important fact within this world.
And letters is also created from the visual library, or visual alphabet.
Yeah, from the 12 things.
An A is a curved line with a straight line in it, and so forth. Just to make sure, just how amazing that.
Yeah, moving right on. So,
so when you have the text, then we'll start to put frames and flow in it and divide it up, so it's easier to understand how it's connected.
This we probably all know from PowerPoint, or from a Word program, is how to differentiate information from other information. Within a context of a map, then you could say using these circles is a bullet, because it now gives us a sense that this is one track of information. Depending on the context, maybe it is that you're down at an aquarium and you're speaking to some oceanographers, wow, and you want to use a bullet. So essentially, I would say that you use a fish to segment your work, right? If you're a gangster in LA, maybe you'd use bullets and a AK-47. I don't know. But you see the idea that you can bullet information down, right?
But then a bullet is a fairly basic thing, but what you then can start play with is if you have a lot of different text, you can have 3 or 5 different bullets, so you can actually start to, these bullets are connected in this way, and these bullets are connected, and so you can start getting some kind of systematic overview.
Getting into pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Once you're there, then maybe there's elements that you've got to combine information even further, so then you can start using frames. And the most simple frame always to use is when a person is talking, you give them a speech bubble, and we all know speech bubbles. The symbol is quite known in it. On the top track, the timeline we've used here, we've used it as a piece of paper stuck up with sellotape. So that also gives you a sense that the years are being framed within that sense. And then you can also start using the frames in a way that you also start talking about almost pictograms, where you're almost combining concepts into them, right? So this one element, me talking, is overpowering René's talk. So you can start playing with frames, right?
Is that a fact?
Hey, Adam. Then we can move on to connectors. And connectors is a good thing, again, to give a sense of flow, to give a sense of direction of where stuff is.
But it could also be dividing information. Yeah. I use that trick a lot when I have my page, and then I've started to make a lot of stuff around a specific topic, and then he moves into the speaker moves into something completely different, and it's like, there's something that's connected up here, so I would probably use a dotted line or something, but then I would use a connector or something to divide my page up.
To give a sense of this is he's talking about this element.
Yeah, this up here is actually connected to this down here, kind of.
Yeah, but again, you can see in all of them that the essentials, that they're the visual alphabet that we showed you, right? They're not hardcore signs. They're just the squiggles and the dots.
I think we can go back to our own notes to show how we've used them in them.
Okay. Then there's more aesthetical elements that you can start using, which is shadows. And shadows you can see here in this section here. We're giving bounds to words. Right? Otherwise, influence of visuals will be flat. And we putting in shadow into these elements gives information forward, and again that gives you a priority of how to say this is important, this is not important. So you can start combining these elements to give focus to this, which is these 3 tracks, or you could say these informations are attached to this track.
So it's a highlighter, actually.
Yeah, highlighter indeed.
And I if you give examples, I use it when I have filled out a page and I find out, okay, this is actually the most important thing. Then it's easy to just add a kind of a drop shadow to it, and then it stands out by itself. You want to show?
No, you drop shadow.
So if you have a box with text, my drop shadows are always to the left down corner. Can you say that?
Yeah, you can.
That's a word, right? It makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm thinking
So I would basically pull all the lines I would need to pull, and then I connect it afterwards, and then I'll just fill it out with black. If I was doing a letter, it's the same thing. So I have an A. It's an A. You can see it's an A.
Everyone sees it's an A.
I would then again pull all the lines I would need to pull, and then I would combine it.
And again, in combination, all these elements becomes a map. It gives you direction of where information needs to go to. But that's an aesthetical thing. Like shadows, use them, don't use them. Another cool thing is to be able to illustrate people. And I think globally a default is always the famous stick person.
We don't have a problem with the stick person per se.
I do.
we just hate the stick person. We would love people not to do a stick person.
Yeah,
so
and then essentially you show them the star trick.
it's like a magic trick.
The magic star trick.
I'm sure we're going so much
So
over time.
everyone to follow this is quite a good exercise just to get into how to make people.
So if you just start to draw stars, 5-point stars, and it doesn't matter how they look, 5-point stars.
Yeah.
The magic trick then happens when you take the top point and replace it with a circle. Then you have a little person. It blew my mind the first time. It's like, and then it actually, when you then it makes it so much easier to make a big crowd of people, because then all you need is a bunch of circles, and then a lot of points, and then you have a group of people.
No, okay. Show them the 8. Show them number 8.
That's more mind blowing. So we're gonna teach you all the tricks of the trade now. So if you draw the letter 8, it's not a letter, is it? It could be a letter. It is. If I use it in a sense, no, it's a number. Then it's actually another magic trick. I'm more a magician than I'm a doodler. With one simple line and a dot, I'll make a person.
Whoa.
Or maybe 2 dots. But then now it's a little person with a hat.
Ta-da! These are just simple mechanisms to walk away from the stick person. Right? Another combination is circle, square, legs, arms, person. And why these? Because you can bring emotion to these things. You can give direction. He's talking about these elements here. This is the text he's talking about. Or she's talking about these elements. Right? Stick people, maybe you can do that with them. I've not been able to give good emotion with stick people. But that's just my bias against stick.
But I think quickly people or peeps or these small weird creatures becomes very personalized.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to differ from the stick people, then in my experience, people quickly find their own little person.
Also good. I mean, for the longest time, I was making people like this because that was easy to make. I was talking about this information, and this group said this, and I made a few people looking like that. But you progressively change. And essential to say around the 6 fundaments is that when you're starting off, maybe it's good for you to practice one element. If you feel brave, dive into the entire ocean and start mixing them up to create these kind of visualized elements for yourself.
And it's like there's exactly a seventh fundament. It's like the movie, the 7th. No, that's the 5th actually.
Yeah,
that's the 5th element. That's
stick to it.
whatever. There's a 7th fundament, and that's color.
Yeah.
We we don't really use that much color.
Shall we go to first?
But I think then escape and then go back in the program. Like there's an escape button there. But then you can talk a bit about color, Abdul.
Yeah, okay. Color again, like the shadowing, like using frames and stuff, gives good sense of where our eyes needs to fall, right? So essentially you would fall here first, top secret. And then maybe you'll go to the carrot. But it gives a good sense of where am I pulling your attention to, or what is important to say. People are going to get back to work. Hey ho, let's go. Another good thing is when you color is good in its minimal use. Color becomes heavy when you're combining all 7 colors on one drawing. because then you're confusing. What am I supposed to look at? So you can use color as a very directional element within the work to say that, like René uses all these arrows to be red, and all these texts are red as well. Or here, deep dive, meaning all the blues, and it gives a good sense that this is one element we need to concentrate on.
Okay.
I'm very bad. I don't really use much color in my stuff.
So, but breaking it down quickly in the fundamentals is there's a lot of text, of course. Normally, I would use if it's a speaker, I would try and draw the person's face as the bullet, and then I would make frames of speech bubbles. That then, so this is the most important things I heard this person say, and I'll track those to him. I use a lot of connectors here because this was something different from this, but so as I mentioned before, I use these dots to divide it, or say, ooh, this is up here and stuff like that, and lines to from here down to here and then forth. I use as people once in a while just to get some like kind of personalized stuff, but also to show different movements or what they're doing, and if it's a group of people or if it's only one person. And then I use simple drawings to kind of convey more of a message, or if I'm bored and it's nothing really to write down, and I'll make a doodle. But I think actually I'm so brilliant that all the elements are here actually, isn't it?
Okay.
But what about
It's gonna go ahead.
if you want? That's a different way of doing it, so that's...
But anyway,
But then you...
connectors. Here my big connector is the road. People, I steer away from stick people, right? All my arrows are black. If I'm trying to accentuate something, I'll give a little bit of a drop shadow. And the other ones...
We're very much over time, actually. I think it's been like...
And okay, so go we
but
on to the next.
I still have so much. Let's drop the 8 rule of thumbs.
Yeah. Here's good. Here's a good scenario to understand when you are listening. In combination with the six fundaments, in combination with the visual alphabet, you'll try and synthesize what you're seeing. You'll visualize that, and this is a very reiterative cycle. It goes on like that the whole time. Get an overview. Try and give yourself good scope in what you're trying to get out of the lecture. Listen for what resonates with you. Again, each one of us has a personalized worldview, and what information that is coming from a speaker, certain things will resonate with you, not everything. Yeah? Do your research. Try and find out who these people are that you are making notes of. I mean, in the lecture scenario, you know that it's your professor, but what is he going to be talking about, or what is she going to be talking about? Maybe do a little bit of pre-reading. It gives you insight into what they'll be saying. Also makes perfect so that you can make connections to what they're saying. Visualize with self-confidence. That does come with practice.
But it's also just, it doesn't matter if the drawing is fucked or it doesn't look like it's supposed to look, or I can say that. But it's just, you don't need to be perfect. Just draw it.
Set up what you can in advance, and this is what we mean by that. If you know that it's Bill Nye, the science guy that is coming, make sure that you have some kind of graphic that illustrates that it is that person, yeah? And then you have white space. And then it's easy just to start pulling into that element what you need to know. Develop an icon library. We have in the past years been good in making more people in different scenarios. So we would make a person at a board illustrating teaching.
But it could also be your version of a camera, or your version of an apple. Like the many doodles you can kind of store in your head.
Yeah.
The faster you'll get them down on paper.
Practice.
Cool. Was that it? Yes.
Yeah.
Only 20 minutes past.
Yeah, cool. This for investigation or for further reading into this world. There's a lot on that map that you can investigate. These people have been very instrumental and inspiring in our world. If we're talking about this work within the Danish context, Ulla Kvist is a very good guy to investigate. He has a company called Bigger Picture. Sunny Brown, David Gray has a really good book called Game Storming, taking these elements into brainstorming and then putting an overall game function over and around it. Very good stuff to get new ideas and put a playful element into it. Dave Gray is Dave Gray, David Sibbett.
It's the godfather.
Within my world, but really good guy to investigate. This is the grandpappy of much of what was happening in this 1960s, 1970s. He combined much of what the architects, the city planners, and combined it into a language, and much of what we're using now it comes out of his research. Austin Kleon is a more younger guy, but very fun to look at. His visual notes is very inspiring in seeing how he's combined them. And then he's got a book called Steal Like an Artist, which is also very good to read. It gives very good ideas and gives a good scenario on how to make these stuff go.